Alright guys, tonight I got something a little unique, to say the least. I have been asked to create a framed goat skin. And, you know, this is a first. I have never framed a goat skin before. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with a piece of plywood. These are some rounds that I had, but I'm going to take it and I'm going to make it into a square. And then I'm going to put the goat skin on it, staple it, and maybe do some little wooden strips to try to hold it, you know, in place like you would if it was a framed picture. And then I've actually got to build the frame. And being that this is a rustic theme, I will be more than likely using either some poplar or maybe a little bit of my cypress or maybe even some hickory. I'm not sure yet. But we're going to get started on this. I'm not going to video this entire build. I'll probably just do a little time lapse. And then at the end, I'll kind of walk you through what it wind up looking like. So I'm going to shut the camera over to time lapse and I'm going to get to work. Alright guys, I decided to go on a piece of water oak that I just took out of the kiln. I figured what better wood to go with a framed goat skin than a tornado blown oak tree, because there ain't much that says Alabama more than framing a goat skin with a tree that was taken out by a tornado. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to have to make this into smaller boards to use for the frame. And then we'll have to do a recess so that the frame will connect to the backer board. But I'm gonna have to cut this up and do that. We've got our square cut now. Got my goat skin here. I'm not sure which parts of the goat skin they want. I don't know if they want just the white or what, but I'm gonna try to work it to where you get a little of the brown and a little of the black. So this is what this is gonna look like when I, you know, get it to the board. But then we got to put the frame around it, but we're going to build the frame first. So that's where we're at right now. Next phase is going to be to take this big piece of oak here and turn it into the boards that we'll use to make the frame with. And I'll be back with you shortly. All right, guys, I got the frame laid out. Everything looks good. I had to touch up a couple of my cuts there. I'm still learning my new miter saw, but I got them all where I want them, and I've left enough of a gap. I've probably left close to 1/4 of an inch of gap right here, and that is going to be so that I'll have enough room to where my goat skin can fit in there snugly, but not have a bunch of room or a big gap, because my plan is to use some smaller pieces of wood just to get the goat skin in there like these as kind of backers, and I'm going to shoot nails through those and into the frame. So I gotta have enough of a lip to do that, and but I want it tight but not too loose or too tight. So I'm going to go ahead and start getting these joints ready. I'm going to have to put biscuits in these 4 joints here and glue those and drop some clamps on them. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to work on getting the skin mounted to the plywood. All right, guys, the frame's coming together. I got the glue on it. I've got the clamps in place. I've put a couple of quick little staples in the back and the ends of it to try to hold it together. I'm just going to wipe off any extra glue that may have seeped out. Try to keep it from becoming an issue when we get down to sanding this thing. But there's our frame so far, and it's coming along. All right, guys, I just decided that I'm gonna let this thing dry overnight tonight, and I'm about ready to call it a day. All right, good morning, guys. I got a little bit of sleep last night, and so back out here this morning ready to finish this thing up. The glue should be more than dry by now. So we're gonna go ahead and take this these corner clamps here off and see what this thing looks like on the inside. These little clamps right here are handy. I did a few of these before I got these clamps, and they're worth it. They're expensive, but they are worth it. And there we go. So we got that guy put together. Looks like it is where I want it. So before we do the sanding, I'm gonna make sure I don't need to do any final adjustments or anything. Like I said, I want this little piece of plywood here to have just enough room around it for the skin. And then we'll have it. So yeah, that looks about where I'd like for it to be. So, and then if you look at it from the other side, it'll be kind of like that, but only it'll have the goat skin sticking up above the frame there. So the next step is I'm gonna go ahead and hit this thing with sandpaper and try to slick down any sharp edges, because a lot of this wood, when you cut it, it gets really sharp, and this is some hard dry wood, and it'll actually cut you almost like a knife blade on those corners right there. So I'm gonna hit that with some sandpaper. I'm not gonna be going too slick with this one, so I'm just gonna use some 100 grit. That ought to be more than adequate for what we're doing here. And like I said, this is kind of a rough wood project. This is some really pretty wood, but if you notice, there's these little tiny holes in here. A lot of times when you buy this IKEA furniture and stuff like that, they all poke holes in it or paint little black dots on it to try to make it look like this stuff. But this is legit powder post beetle marks that's in that wood. Those are little bugs that get in the logs when they're laying on the ground, and they bore into the wood and make babies. And so once you dry the log and you dry it in the kiln, you kill the babies and you kill the bugs that are in the wood, but it leaves the holes behind. And a lot of people will associate that with you know, homemade wood and custom rough finish barnhouse look stuff. And like I said, this is just water oak. I mean, there's nothing special about this tree. Most folks burn this stuff for firewood, but it's got a good grain to it. This one had been laying on the side of the road for several months before I picked it up, and that's where the bugs came in. But I don't like seeing wood go to waste, and especially this thing wasn't but just a little while away from my house, and if I hadn't have got it up, the county would have had to move it for their bush hogs, so it worked out pretty well for everybody. So, got the frame done. Now all I got to do is I'm going to test fit this thing, and I'm going to go ahead and start working on getting my skin on my backer board and get it ready, make sure it fits. And then once I do that, then I'll be able to stain this thing. I don't want to put no stain on it until I'm sure I'm done with everything that I'm going to do to it. And now that I've sanded this guy, let me get my trusty rug out, so if I slide anything around, I don't scuff it up too bad. As y'all can tell, my table's it's a work in progress, but it works. And I use those rugs, like I said, after I've sanded something, it keeps it from scratching it up, and that way I don't have to resand it as much. So, but that's what that's where we're at. So I'm gonna go get the goat skin. All right, now comes the fun part. I've never framed a goat skin, so this is going to be a learning curve for everybody involved here. But I think the easiest and way for me to do it is gonna be to use my frame as a bit of a jig. So that's what we're gonna do. I'm gonna try to lay this guy in here to where all I gotta do, put my board here and kind of press it into the frame, and we'll see if that gets it tight enough. Let me try to get a little tension on it here. Literally, guys, this is kind of like a goat roping. So I'm just trying to get enough tension on the skin so that it's not, I don't want it falling off the board. So hopefully that gap is tight enough that as I pull it out, it'll hold it tight. So that's my hopes anyway. Let me grab a stapler. All right, I'm not gonna go too happy with the staples because I very well may be redoing this. So I'm gonna pop it just enough to hold this thing still so that I don't get any slack when I pull it out of my frame. Trying to stay close to the edges with my staples too, so in case we do have to redo this. And this is almost like wrapping a Christmas present. But once I get it, make sure I got it where I want it and I got enough slack to do what I want to do, we're gonna go back and I'm gonna trim this thing up, make it look neat. But for now, I just want to see what it looks like on the other side. And I'm afraid to move it without having it stapled. So let's see what we got. Oh, woo. A word of advice, goat skin is slippery. It slid right out of there, even though it's kind of a tight fit. All right, let me hold some pressure on this thing. I think that's what I want, guys. Let me get this a little closer here. But I think that's the way I want it to look. I've got a little bit of the black, a little bit of the brown. The center line of the hide is right here in the middle of my frame for the most part. I don't know that it's exact, but I think that's where I want it. So I think I'm good on that. It's nice and tight. I don't see a whole lot of wrinkles. I mean, it's gonna have a little bit of wrinkle to it. It's a skin and it was not designed to sit flat. So I think we're good on that part. So I'm gonna separate my skin from the frame and go ahead and put some stain on the frame, and then we'll move forward with trimming and setting this skin the way it's gonna end up being. So that's good. We can just set this to the side right now. We'll move this over here out of the way. All right, guys. As always, I am a fan of Early American when it comes to country barn house look, and oak does pretty good with this thing. So now you get to see why my table looks like somebody dropped a paint bucket on it, or like it's got mud all over it. And don't pay attention to my gloves. These get used over and over. These guys are $50-something a box, and I'm not one to use them once and throw them away. Like I said, I like to try to get my money's worth out of them. So I'm just gonna start. I'm using a piece of, just all this is a piece of old t-shirt. You can buy a box of rags at the hardware store. Or if you got any t-shirts that don't fit anymore or got holes in them, you can rip those babies into shreds and use them in your shop. And all you got to do with the stain is basically just wipe it on and try to, you don't want to let any of it puddle up too big and sit for too long because it may cause some dark spots. But just wipe this stuff on and more or less kind of rub it in, kind of like lotion, I guess you could say. Just keep it moving, and you want to get a nice consistent coloring. And this water oak actually has some pretty decent grain. But one thing you do need to watch for is you want to try to when you're wiping it on, you want to try to go with the grain. And you can't always do that on a picture frame because it changes corners so much, so you have to kind of touch in on those corners. This little bit of blade chatter right here. I intentionally left that on this piece of wood. And so I wanted a little bit of character. And this is gonna be where I'm gonna put the label that I'm gonna make. And so I'm gonna have a little piece of wood over top of that, but I wanted a little bit of you know, homemade country character right there on that bottom slat. So I used a board that had a little bit of saw blade chatter on it from the mill, and didn't take it all the way off with a planer. Just kind of left it on there for a while. So got the back done. And just work your way around. Like I said, I usually do the back first because the back on this project, we're not really worried about people seeing it. So I'm gonna lay it on the back, and if anything was to stick to it, or if my rug was to, you know, kind of leave little impressions on it or marks on it or whatever, it's not gonna be noticeable. So I always start with the back. And then this, these edges right here, it's got some pretty detail in this wood. I think they're gonna be happy with the look of this thing when we get it done here. And then, like I said, just all the way around, everywhere there's wood, there needs to be stain. And I'm gonna go over it with a dry rag after I get through, just to speed things up. See, there's that little bit of chatter I was talking about right there. I left that just to add a little character to her. We're on the front side now, so this is gonna be the side everybody's looking at. And there's a little bit of blade marks right there. Just enough to let folks know that this didn't come from Home Depot. And that way, folks pay me to do custom country creative stuff, and I want to make sure they get it, so people don't look at it and go, "Oh, that looks nice. Where'd you get that, IKEA?" Because you don't get solid oak frames like this in many places. This thing's 3/4 of an inch thick, 3 inches wide, and made out of solid oak. So, all right, got that part done. I'm gonna toss my rag here. And I'm gonna go ahead and cover this up. Because in my experience, if you don't cover it up, it ain't a question of if you're gonna knock it over, it's just me. So I'm gonna go dispose of my rag, get a clean rag, and wipe my hands off with this glove here. All right, let's get this thing done. Got other projects to move on to. I gotta go get some cedar cut for a fella, and I got a cedar table I gotta make, or table countertop, island top, whatever it is. So let's try to get this thing knocked out. We can be moving. I gotta make sure I got all of my stain off, because I really don't want to stain the goat skin. So this stuff dries fast, but we're just gonna make sure we wipe all of it off too. And then I'm gonna move the goat skin back over here, reattach it. Now that we got this part done, I'm not gonna put any varnish or anything on this. Varnish tends to make this stuff look a little too fancy. This is exactly something you find at the store every day. So all right, I dropped in there. Let's look at it one more time, make sure we are snug enough on the skin there. There we go. All right, yeah, I'm gonna have to attach that, but I think that's going to be as tight as we want it to go. So we're going to go ahead and drop that guy in there. Yep, got my brown and my black showing, the bottom. All right, we're good. So now what I got to do is I got to figure out exactly how I'm going to adhere this on the back side. Never really had a problem with getting fur all over my workshop other than my cats. Looks like we are today. Yeah, that's definitely a new problem to have. Hair all over the place. Almost went in on those. Need to upgrade my paper, I think. Let me go ahead and pull these ones I put in that were holding there.
Reload.
All right, now for the strips to hold her in. I've actually got a different idea on this. I may do a complete backer on this guy, and I may do something a little different here. Let me try something. Oh guys, I just had a brainstorm. I think we may use a laser on this guy. What I'm thinking is on these corners where my folds are, that's going to be where the majority of my support is. I'm thinking that it would look really nice if I had some little triangles to go back here that had holes in them to hold this thing in place, and I could use this real thin plywood right here that I use for my other stuff, and I could make 4 of those. They could be identical and screw them into this frame. And it would serve 2 purposes. One, it would make these joints a lot stronger because you would have this piece of wood scabbed over them. And 2, it's going to put pressure on the corners of this hide and hold it in there. So I think that's what I'm going to do. So I'm going to leave it with you for a minute while I go build this out in my laser program and cut these pieces out. And then when I get them cut out, I'm going to bring them back over here and use them. And show you one more reason why having a laser around is kind of handy. All right, guys, I got the little brackets cut out there that we're going to use to hold this thing in place. I got to make sure all my little holes fall out. So Yeah, that's gonna be, I like that idea better. And now two of my hobbies overlap. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take this and I'm gonna put these right just inside the back of this thing. I'm gonna space them in a little bit and press those down. And then I'm gonna put some screws in there to hold all this together. And that'll hold the skin in place. It's gonna look better. And I think it'll work well. So that's what we're gonna do now. I'm gonna try to make sure I get these where I want them. And we'll go from there. To have enough holes to do what I need to do with. So I think I'm gonna do, yeah, I may just put 3 screws in there. We'll see. These are pretty good size screws. I think they'll hold fine. And I'm saving my design so that if I ever have this situation again where I need some of these things, all I gotta do is go burn them out. And that was another reason I put all the extra holes, is because I may be using it for something where I want. Cheap screws. All right, guys, I got it put together here. I've got all four corners. I use my little triangle pieces that I cut on the laser there, and those have got a good bit of pressure holding that thing in there. The cool thing that I like is that I can take it out if I wanted to refinish the frame or needed to change the frame. We can take it out relatively easy without damaging the skin, and I think that's pretty cool. So all right, guys, I'm gonna try to speak up a little bit. We got one of those Alabama thunderstorms moving through, so it is a little noisy in here in my tin shop. But got the braces put on. I decided that I was gonna do the full back, so I've got me another piece cut out. Went ahead and slapped me a logo on there just so I have it on it. And this piece is gonna sit in here just like so. I'm gonna try to tuck the fur in there best I can. So this will cover the entire back of it. And then I got a few screws to hold this part on. And we'll be done. And then I got to put the little hanger on there, the hanger there. As promised, I got the back on it, got it put together, and now we have our framed goat skin. So there we go. Like I said, the only thing that's left to do is I'm going to make a tag to go on here more than likely, unless they choose not to. Just having the date of the wedding and everything on there. But that's it, and this guy is sturdy. It's not going anywhere. It's tough. And the last thing you want to do is build something that someone's going to have in a wedding and build it to where it doesn't last. So this thing's built like a tank. It shouldn't go anywhere, and it's a little heavy, but I put the little hanging mechanism on the back there with a really good screw, so it shouldn't go anywhere. But that's how you frame a goat skin, guys. That's my first. Let me know what you think, and if you thought this was interesting, amusing, or otherwise entertaining, be sure to hit the subscribe button. I'm going to start including a lot more of my projects and videos, and kind of walk you through the steps, and maybe we can all learn something or figure something out together. But thank you and have a good day.